You're watching FISM News.
Austria's government plans to start reopening shops starting next week in an initial loosening of its coronavirus lockdown, though it widened a requirement to wear face masks. Like most countries, Austria was broadly shut down 3 weeks ago, closing schools, bars, restaurants, theaters, non-essential shops, and other gathering places. The public has been told to stay at home and work from there if possible. The lockdown has curbed the daily increase in infections to single digits in percentage terms, and the number of people in hospitals has stabilized. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz said his early action was paying off. There have been 220 deaths so far. Kurz said in a news conference, "We reacted faster and more restrictively than in other countries and could therefore avoid the worst. But this fast and restrictive reaction now also gives us the possibility to come out of this crisis more quickly." He noted, however, that his plan was tentative and would only be possible if the public continues sticking to the lockdown measures.
According to the Bronx Zoo veterinarians, one of the zoo's tigers has tested positive for the respiratory disease caused by the novel coronavirus strain. This is the first known case of a human infecting an animal and making it sick with the virus. Nadia, the 4-year-old Malayan tiger, was initially screened for the COVID-19 disease after developing a dry cough along with 3 other tigers and 3 lions. All of the cats are expected to recover, according to the zoo. COVID-19 is believed to have spread from humans to animals, and a handful of animals have already been tested positive in Hong Kong. But officials believe this is a unique case because Nadia became sick after exposure to an asymptomatic zoo employee. Dr. Paul Calley, chief veterinarian at the Bronx Zoo, said they did not know which employee infected the tiger. This is the first time that any of us know of anywhere in the world that a person infected the animal and the animal got sick, Calley said, adding that they plan to share the findings with other zoos and institutions.
Nurses protested lack of COVID-19 protective equipment in front of the main entrance to the Harlem Hospital on Monday. They demanded greater access to N95 masks, gowns, gloves, and glasses to slow the spread of the disease.
We're here because we're enraged that the state and the hospital systems are not responding rapidly enough. They're still waiting on the highest bidders for these PPE equipment. Trump needs to act fast and now. We have no more time for more patient deaths, unnecessary healthcare worker deaths.
Dystopian, apocalyptic. I am seeing people die every single day. We don't have the cleaning supplies that we need. We don't have the space that we need. We don't have the staff that we need.
The New York City Health Department counted 64,955 cases of COVID-19 in the 5 boroughs as of Sunday, April 5th at 5 p.m. Out of that number, 14,205 people were hospitalized and 2,472 died.
Business Breakthrough University, or BBT, in Tokyo held a graduation ceremony for students in late March using avatar robots remotely controlled by graduating students from their homes. The avatar robots, dubbed Numi by developer ANA Holdings, were dressed in the standard graduation caps and gowns for the ceremony, complete with tablets projecting the graduates' virtually shown faces. The ceremony was held for only 4 graduating students in order to avoid a large gathering of sorts during the current outbreak, according to BBT's press release. Nevertheless, university staff and entourage of media were still present during the ceremony. One of the students receiving his master's degree diploma, Kazuki Tamura, said via his avatar, "I think this is truly a novel experience to receive a certificate in a public area while I am in a private space." The university said it hopes their innovative approach would become a model for schools across the country looking to avoid mass gatherings. On Monday, police in Santiago de Compostela, Spain, arrested a businessman for his supposed involvement in the robbery of 2 million masks amid the coronavirus crisis. The regional government said in a statement that all the stolen material, which included medical supplies and masks, were estimated to be worth 5 million euros. Some of it was sold to the neighboring country, Portugal. Health supplies were removed from their boxes and protected plastic in order to hide its origins. According to the official statement, evidence suggests that the robbery happened when the coronavirus pandemic was already present in several countries and was considered a public health problem. The regional government said police opened an investigation and arrested a local businessman who had been seen around the factory where the robbery happened and who had recently supposedly had a meeting with Portuguese citizens.
Even as medical teams struggled to save an onslaught of gravely ill coronavirus patients, the number of COVID-19 hospitalizations seemed to be leveling off in New York State. New York was one of several states, along with the nation as a whole, to post their highest daily loss of life from COVID-19. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said the rising number of deaths was a lagging indicator. Early statistical signs show that the crisis might be peaking in the nation's biggest hotspot for the coronavirus disease. Cuomo told a news conference, "Let's not get complacent. Social distancing is working. That's why you see those numbers coming down." He pointed to slowing rates of coronavirus hospitalizations, intensive care admissions, and ventilator intubations as signs that social distancing measures imposed last month were working.
After a last-minute court battle and despite a stay-at-home order, thousands of Wisconsin voters on Tuesday braved the coronavirus outbreak to wait 6 feet apart in lines for hours and cast ballots in the state's presidential primary and local elections. Some who had requested absentee ballots said they never received them, forcing them to choose between risking their health to cast a ballot in person or forgoing their right to vote. State records showed around 9,400 ballots had not been mailed as of Tuesday morning. Satya Rhodes Conway, Madison's Democratic mayor, said in an interview, "Frustrating doesn't even begin to cover it. The fact that the legislature had refused to take any action is just reprehensible." She said Madison opened 66 of its 92 normal polling sites after recruiting 1,400 replacement poll workers. The city shifted dozens of employees to the clerk's office from other departments in recent weeks to help prepare for the election.
The Wuhan Xinhe International Airport started resuming domestic passenger flights early on Wednesday after the 11-week lockdown in China's Wuhan city was lifted. The airport performed a water salute to receive the first arriving flight, which was inbound from East China's Hangzhou city. The Xinhe Airport is expected to see a total of more than 200 inbound and outbound flights during its first day of reopening, according to authorities. Strict measures do remain in place, however, as passengers are required to receive body temperature checks and show green-colored QR codes on their mobile phones, which verifies their health status before entering the airport's terminal. Back in late January, Wuhan declared unprecedented traffic restrictions, including suspending the city's public transport and all outbound flights and trains, in an attempt to contain the epidemic. Now, the reopening of the airport marks an important milestone for the city that bore the brunt of the novel coronavirus disease epidemic in China.
Early data from U.S. states shows African Americans are more likely to die from COVID-19. In Michigan, black people account for 40% of the state's reported deaths, according to data released by the state, but its population is only 14% African American. Over 70% of the 512 people killed by the coronavirus in Louisiana as of Monday, April 6th, were black, said Governor John Edwards, a far larger percentage than the state's black population represents. Many U.S. states, including the hardest-hit New York, have not released demographic data showing the virus's toll on different racial groups. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention also has not publicly reported data on race and ethnicities of patients who have contracted COVID-19. The data is preliminary and not national and does not explain what is causing the disparities. However, community leaders and public health officials said it could reflect both higher levels of underlying illnesses that make African Americans more vulnerable, as well as possibly lower levels of access to health care.
The forced closure of businesses across the United States and surge in unemployment due to the coronavirus pandemic will force U.S. growth to contract by 30% in the second quarter and 5% overall in 2020, Pacific Investment Management Company, or PIMCO, wrote this week. In spite of the already enormous spate of layoffs, the number of jobs lost is likely to continue to rise as more states close non-essential businesses. The figures are also expected to rise as unemployment offices work through a backlog of claims. PIMCO economist Tiffany Wilding notes that the government's March employment report showed that layoffs had begun earlier than suggested by weekly unemployment data and were spread across industries, including healthcare, which PIMCO had expected to remain resilient. In spite of the U.S. government's unprecedented fiscal and monetary stimulus programs, there are still meaningful risks to the U.S. economy, the Post said. The stimulus may not be large or fast enough to prevent waves of bankruptcies, and the pandemic experience may fundamentally change U.S. consumer behavior. Additionally, there are segments of the market that are excluded from the stimulus and bond buying programs, including speculative-grade companies, which are likely to experience a surge in bankruptcies. Those defaults and the loss of millions of jobs could ultimately worsen the economic crisis. After the peak of the pandemic in the United States, which is currently forecast for May or June, PIMCO expects a recovery in growth as businesses reopen and rehire workers. Some sectors may bounce back faster than others. Construction and some manufacturing, along with other industries dependent on advanced lending and project planning, are likely to recover more slowly.
Thank you for watching. This has been FISM News.